Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public comment. Public, you have 3 minutes to address the board. Looks like all staff here. Okay, moving on. Committee items, minutes of the June 11, 2018 meeting. Motion and support. Any changes or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Takes us to appointments. We've got a number of them. First up is the Land Bank Authority. There are no applicants. Any nominations from the floor? Traffic Safety Program. Angela Klein is the current member, and she's now an applicant. Support. Motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Community Corrections Advisory Board, no member, no applicant. Any nominations from the floor? Hearing none. Upper Grand River Watershed Council. We have 3 current members with no applicants. I reached out to Kenny Price over the weekend. He relayed that Don Nelson does wish to be reappointed. So I would nominate Don Nelson. Motion and support. Any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. We'll continue to advertise all these open ones. And then lastly, the Department on Aging Advisory Council. It's the seat of Howard Griffiths. There's no applicants. Any nominations?
Didn't we already do that?
I asked the same thing on Friday, and that was a different board that he served on.
What was the other one? Region 2.
Yeah.
Area.
Region 2 Area Agency on Aging. Bill.
Grant Ballman just walked in.
I don't think he's old enough to qualify. Okay, if there are no other serious nominations, that's it for appointments. Next up, we have the Enterprise Group with the Blackman and Parma LDFA reports. Amy, good morning.
Good morning. We're back to report on LDFAs again this month, and Chairman Shotwell asked me to do some analysis on the different comparisons and incentives between LDFAs, certified business parks, and smart zones. But first, I guess I would like to just ask if there are any questions in what you received. It was dated in June. We sent it last month. And I do have an update for, if you don't have any questions, I have an update for the Parma LDFA. The first phase of the lift station improvements has been completed, and there'll be some analysis on that so that they can determine the size of pumps they need, and then the second phase will be bid after that determination is made. So that's some really good news that that's started. So in your packet you received, I hope, this document that has a little graphic with it, and then there's a table with a lot of information on it, and then some photos of the LDFA parks. And I'm not going to read all of this to you, but just to kind of meet Chair Shotwell's request, I wanted to do a comparison of the different parks. So the Blackman LDFA was established in 1991, and that was primarily to attract TAC here. And I won't go through all of it, but he did ask what incentives there are, and LDFA doesn't really have incentives for the businesses themselves. It's a financing tool for the municipality to be able to use the tax increment to provide infrastructure in the park expansions and so forth. But I thought the interesting facts were worthy of noting. TAC had 55 employees when it was originally constructed, and now they're at over 1,000. So public investment at these parks is very beneficial. They've invested, from my calculations, a little less than $100 million in improvements at TAC since their inception. And other Blackman LDFA park tenants include JSP, which was formerly Conica, JSP Sheet Foam, and Chemitol and Technique. And as you know, Blackman is working very hard on the new expansion to the north side of County Farm Road, which we're referring to as Jackson Technology Park North. The second incentive is a smart zone, and that is actually a state designation that is part of an LDFA district. So we have Blackman LDFA and Parma LDFA, and Blackman Township was able to get that designation. That occurred in 2007, and we did our first TIF and development plan, which is a requirement for operation of a smart zone, which was approved in 2011. And basically, in the Blackman LDFA's case, the increased tax revenue from school taxes can be used for anything in your TIF and development plan, and that includes advanced manufacturing as part of the LDFA industrial parks, among other things. Baker College did donate space for an incubator at one time, and we really had a lot of difficulty getting entrepreneurs to use that. But we did have, Ken Seneff was our first graduate of that incubator, and he's been very successful with Local Logic Media, so we're very proud that he was able to take advantage of that. The next one is Village of Parma LDFA, and I put the same description in there about the incentives. And their interesting fact is that Mackey began with 75 associates and now have over 1,100. Their investment has been approximately $450 million and probably more than that, with expansions totaling an under-roof plant of 23 acres. The other part tenant was Galaxy Chemical, and now that is Pro Services, which was a new company that came to Jackson to occupy that building. And then finally, the other entity that he wanted me to explain was Certified Business Parks. So Certified Business Parks are established by the Michigan Economic Developers Association, which is our economic development association, obviously. And they have a program since 1969 to certify business parks. So they have requirements that business parks should meet, sign requirements, protective covenants and or zoning restrictions that would meet their criteria. And we have both the Parma LDFA and the Blackman LDFA as certified business parks. Those have to be recertified every year. That requires some paperwork, a fee, and an inspection that either Debbie or I or both of us meet the META inspectors at the parks and make sure that we're following all of their criteria. Are there any questions? Does that achieve what you wanted, Chairman Shotwell? Good.
You want to ask it now, Steve, or?
Thank you guys for all the hard work you've done in Blackman and Parma, and I know that there was a lot of coaching. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, as you know, many of you, or some of you, attended the bus tour, which was a little over a year ago, I believe. And we looked at a lot of sites there, and of course, Blackman, or Jackson Technology Park North was the first on that agenda and the most easy to access, I guess, with all of the infrastructure there. Probably the next one is looking south on South Meridian Road, and there are a lot of challenges for that when the infrastructure is not there for sanitary storm sewer. But we also have had an opportunity, Blackman LDFA has had an opportunity to work with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation on some technical assistance that they're going to provide looking at our parks. And so we're starting with JTP North, but we're hoping to maybe get some advice and technical assistance on that park as well as we move forward, if that program continues another year. So there are a lot of challenges, and of course we're always, you know, if that's the next one, then we'll be looking at others as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, takes us to the Region 2 Planning Commission semi-annual report. Morning, Grant.
Good morning, everyone. You received in your packets the semi-annual report for for Region 2. Just to summarize a little bit, we continue to staff the Jackson County Planning Commission, providing various services to that. The Jackson County Solid Waste Management Plan was finally approved by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. Various economic development services were provided for the Region 2 area, including Jackson County. Many things happened under transportation planning services. The Jackson Area Transportation Authority completed a transit study through Region 2. Work began on a non-motorized plan jointly between the City of Jackson and Jackson County. Work on that is going to start later this year. The 2045 long-range transportation plan was completed for Jackson County and is in the approval process at the state and federal levels. On page 4 of your of the report talks about all of the projects that are underway through the Transportation Improvement Program for the Jackson Area Comprehensive Transportation Study. And finally, various things were done on behalf of the Jackson Traffic Safety Commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions of Grant? Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Grant.
Good morning.
The county solid waste plan, because the state has now approved that, it is officially our plan now, or is there more action got to be taken by the county?
No, it is now approved.
Okay.
So there's no additional actions are needed.
Was there many major changes to it, or just small little tweaks?
Just some small tweaks. There was they were called administrative modifications, mostly just some simple corrections, nothing really substantive. But that was reported before and was approved by you, by the full county board, and so nothing has changed since that action was taken.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And good job running that through.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Grant? Grant, thank you.
Thank you very much.
That takes us to item E, the airport meet and hunt contract modification. Juan, good morning.
Morning. Morning, Commissioners. The final modification for the Phase 1 of the runway reconstruction project, there was some unexpected construction that was required 400 tons of digging and extra materials that could not be foreseen on the Phase 1 of the project. The contractor, Mead and Hunt, is requesting a change order number 4 to the contract that was approved by the Commission. And this will allow us to submit the contract to the FAA for closure. It's going to be an additional $139,154, and we're still in the 2.5% county share that was grandfathered in for this contract. So this should take us into the next project, which is the closing out of Phase 2. In the Phase 2 planning, they added the extra 400 tons of material that was used in Phase 1. So as far as the county is concerned, this should be a washout, is what I'm told from Mead and Hunt. But in order to close out this particular contract, it's going to be an additional $3,498 that the county is responsible for.
And that money is all set aside, and that's the 2.5% cost share, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions of one? John?
I just want to be clear that these monies for Phase 2 are already actually included in the Phase 2 contract, so it's not as you said, it's not, anything the county is not aware of that these dollars weren't going to be
Exactly.
necessary.
Yeah, we actually have money set aside in the reserves for this particular project, so it won't require any additional funding.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if no other questions, the motion's in order.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Be sent to the full board. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you.
Next up is item F, the Parks Burns Property Maintenance Agreement with the Nature Conservancy. Good morning.
Good morning. The Jackson County Parks currently owns and manages 132-acre property that we call the Burns property. For the past 10 years, we have been in a maintenance agreement with the Nature Conservancy, who has cared for the high-quality fen and wetland property. The purpose of the agreement is to care for the natural resources of this unique property. Our Parks Department staff does not have the specialized training and education the Nature Conservancy has to adequately care for the property at the highest level possible. The Nature Conservancy owns and manages approximately 500 acres of property adjacent to the Burns property, and managing this area as a collective unit helps ensure the highest quality of success. This new 10-year agreement would help ensure the quality of our valued county and state natural resources on this property. The Nature Conservancy has generously offered to continue caring for this property for a period of 10 years at no cost to the Jackson County Parks or the taxpayers. We are grateful for the opportunity to have the partnership that we do with the Nature Conservancy. It's the most effective way that government can do business. We recommend your approval of entering into this agreement. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, any questions of Mark? And if not, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the maintenance agreement.
Make a motion to approve the maintenance.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Next up is the Sheriff's Department with Under Sheriff Cool for Matt Copro. Morning.
Good morning. I have before you, I'm seeking approval on behalf of CoPro and Michigan Association of Counties to move forward in finalizing the master agreement with Canteen Services for our inmate food. Under the new financial policy drafted recently by the County of Jackson, CoPro Plus, a division of Michigan Association of Counties, was engaged to draft, publish, receive proposals, evaluate those proposals, and award this RFP contract for inmate food services. We began this process back in April. You can see under item C the timeline. We released the RFP in May, and we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting so the vendors could see our facilities and our operations and how those go. And CoPro Plus received the responses, evaluated those, and then obviously, as you can see the attachment in board docs, based on their agreement with Jackson County, opted to award Canteen Services the bid. There was only two bidders. The second bid was actually a no bid. Within this contract, there is a reduction in per meal cost of 5 cents at $1.06 a meal. We're currently at $1.11 a meal. So there will be cost savings within that. And this was all based on CoPro's recommendations. We had some minor input in the RFP, but for the most part, they handled the entire process. And as I understand it, the second bidder, Trinity Keefe Group, simply submitted their bids so they could have what's called pre-certification for other bids or other services that CoPro Plus may do. Apparently it's a process they have. So I am here on behalf of them, looking for them to be authorized to engage in the finalization of the master agreement with Canteen Services.
Chris, just two questions from me. So it's a savings of a nickel a meal, looks like. Did the commissary commission change at all or not?
No, that is the same.
Okay. That's it for me. Phil.
Is Canteen our vendor presently?
Yes, they are, and they've done a very good job. You know, we've meal service and medical service is probably the two, what do I say, service type heavy type of processes within the jail, and those are certainly very behemoth things to change, and to change vendors and processes, things like that. We've been very happy with them as far as meal services. They've been very responsive when we've asked to change things, or when we have unique situations such as dietary regulation or dietary problem. They've been very responsive in that, so we've been happy with them as a vendor, but obviously this contract expired in July, and it was time to put it back out for bid to see what other options we had. So,
Thank you, good job.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we're looking for a motion to send it on to the full board.
Make a motion to send it to the full board.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Undersheriff. Next up is you again for the pagers for the fire service.
yes, here I'll be looking for approval to move forward with a agreement with Rocom Incorporated, who the provider for these fire pagers. This is part of the 800 megahertz radio system transition. This has been a known cost from the very early onset, but these are costs that are outside of the Motorola contract, but costs that are included in the bonding of the radio system. And so with this, obviously, for those of you that don't know or may not have a complete understanding, a fire pager is what a lot of volunteer firefighters or off-duty firefighters receive their notices for runs on, or fires or rescues. Since a lot of these individuals are paid on call or volunteer, they respond from either a job or maybe from home to go to these type of calls. This Unication pager is the only designated pager that works with the MPSCS, the Michigan Public Safety Communication Systems radio system. And we had obtained bids on these at the very beginning. The costs have kind of slowly come down as the technology has become refined, as manufacturing has ramped up, and frankly, as more people across the state begin to use MPSCS's system in a fire response capacity. So it was based on our vendor's recommendation that we wait until the very latter stages to move forward with the purchase, since the price was going to be a little bit lower. The price is in fact a little bit lower. We are looking for a total cost of $181,140. That would purchase 355 pagers. That would be enough for all of the fire departments, and an additional approximately 3 pagers per department, so they can have spares or backups and whatnot. Blackman Public Safety is the outlier in this, as they're going to use their radios. We're going to have a special programming feature on the radios since they are public safety, but they do want a small amount of pagers for their individuals who are on station duty both in Leone Township and in Blackman Township. So they will be receiving some pagers, but approximately 8 is what our count is now, so it will be a very small number. I do have to ask, and maybe we should have some discussion on this. I was recently informed that these pagers come with like a USB charger like you'd have on your cell phone, and it essentially plugs into it just like a cell phone does. Apparently there is a charger cradle dock option, which I was just informed last week would be the preference for most departments. We did not initially plan on buying those. That is an additional cost of $77 per pager. So I may ask for an amendment or a change to this document to provide me some latitude, perhaps, let's say within $10,000 to purchase a certain number of these cradles, if the board thinks that's appropriate, to supply a number of these to the fire departments. I certainly don't think we need to buy 355 charging cradles for every single fire pager there is out there, but I do see the value in having a handful of these with each department, so they can drop these into a cradle, whether it be in a station or whatnot. But the base cost of $181,140, that provides the 355 pagers, the standard charging cable, the programming, and then the dissemination to the departments.
Chris, I'll just, a couple of comments. First is, it seems like the number of pagers dropped significantly from what we originally talked about. Is that just attributable to Blackman, or?
Well, we had a little bit of trouble getting our arms around what was needed and what should be funded. The initial request for pagers was operating off of current pager inventory, and a number of departments had amassed a significant number of pagers, apparently because they are very temporary. They become damaged very easily because they wear them quite frequently. With the onset of the radio programming and how many radios we're going to deploy, the cost of those radios, the functionality of those radios, meaning the chief's radios in those fire departments could page pagers, things like that. We came to an agreement that we felt a sufficient number between the fire chiefs and the county would be 355 pagers, which would account for all of the fire service employees in the county, every department, and provide at least 3 additional pagers per department. The chiefs felt like that was an adequate amount. The base cost of a pager, if they had to purchase some on their own, which sounds like they may intend on doing down the road, would be it's not a huge insurmountable cost for them to buy a handful of pagers here and there. But we had to draw a line somewhere because obviously we have more money invested in equipment going out to these departments, and so we kind of came to this agreement. But Blackman Township is part of it once they realized they could use their radios for paging.
Yeah, trying to make the argument from if we have to buy more later or more expenses later for the cradles. But so if they choose to get additional pagers of their own, as I recall, there's no mic fee associated with pagers, correct?
That's right. It's just going to be a receive-only device, and the programming will actually be done right there from a laptop by Rocom, and that's why they kind of said these are not hard to do. They're very quick. We can take a whole batch of them for this department, kind of program them or clone them within a short period of time and deliver those. It's not as intricate since you're not transmitting and receiving as a radio is, and you're just receiving alerts on that pager.
And then lastly, for me, the document notes total cost of $181,140, but it says includes the devices, charging, cradles, programming, and dissemination. So
that's correct. That should be charging cable, not the cradle. The cradle's an additional $77 per device, which I just realized on Thursday.
I'll be supportive later if you have to come back for that, but any other questions of the undersheriff on this? If not, we'd be looking for a motion to send it to the full board. Motion and support. Phil?
We don't know if we need the cradles, the charging cradles right now, or we got to count and see how many we need.
The cradles are simply a ease of operation. It's an amenity. The devices come with a standard, USB charger cord like you would have on any cell phone. The argument was made to me by a fire chief last week that it may be more simplistic for them to drop it into a cradle and it automatically starts charging, which I can't disagree with that, but at some point we have to decide on what is it we're going to provide and what is it the departments are going to provide. I do see some value in having a small number of those, and that's kind of what we'll work through over the next many weeks is what that should look like, how many we should supply based on that convenience factor.
I have a question.
Having used pagers for a lot of years and early in the career, a lot better that way. I mean, it's the same thing radios have, charging cradle, typically you stick them in, so. But you'll come back for that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sarah?
Well, I was just wondering about those cradles. Is it just for a single unit, or can you get the multi-unit?
I'm sure it'd be single unit, and the fact is that the pagers are going to go home with the firefighters usually.
That's exactly what they're looking for. There are bank charging cradles available, but that would be at the cost of the department if they wanted to hold extras there. But he's exactly right. The pagers are going to go home with the staff, and I think they want them for their, their counter, their nightstand, whatever, so they can grab it and go.
Okay, any other questions? John?
Yeah. Hey, Chris, just a couple things. One, so we're looking in full package out the door, something like $500 per unit without the cradles. And that, whatever the price is, in terms of the support that goes along with it. And the point was is that oftentimes those are mechanisms that get damaged fairly easy. I just want to know, what's the longevity? Are we talking about replacing them so often? How many times we're going to replace them, or is there a kind of a lifetime of the mechanism support kind of a thing? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I can only answer that based on our past history and the first version of pagers that we had bought under the Homeland Security Grant, let's say about 13 or 14 years ago. Some of those are still in service. Departments are kind of on their second iteration, and really a lot of it has to do with, it's kind of like your phone. How many times do you drop it? And what kind of environment are you putting it into? So there's not a clean answer. I'm under the impression, based on reviewing the kind of stats for this, that these are a little bit more ruggedized than the standard Minotaur pagers that were on the VHF system, which kind of look like a a little more advanced pager from way back in the 90s, but we're hoping for a little bit better life and longevity out of these. They can be repaired. They can be reprogrammed and brought back into tolerances, things like that. So, we will be good for the current period, but again, yes, I'm sure some of that will probably have to be corrected down the road, but that's where the conversation becomes, what is the buy-in of the township should they need those, and based on what that cost is. And my assumption to them would be just like the radios, you probably want to insure these, that way if there's some catastrophic loss that it can be replaced.
You say they should insure these, you're talking about the individual agencies, not the county, correct?
I'm talking about the individual agencies, yes. These are going to be turned over to them, and they will be the owners of them.
Yeah, same as the radios. Radios are the agencies, they insure them. If they break them, they replace them. So, okay, we have a motion and support already. Doc.
What is the difference?
Well, I think it's probably simplicity. It's probably what they're used to. They're used to grabbing that out of its charging cradle or charging holder and putting it on and going. This will be a process of pulling the USB cord in and out. Anybody who's dealt with any amount of electronics over time knows that USBs, their ports, and how they charge often become broken, bent, disabled over a period of time. So if you're talking about somebody putting this thing in and out every single day, yes, I can see there to be some problems with that, but a lot of that, just like Commissioner Williams had brought up, might be a test for the longevity or ruggedness of this. So I don't know that there's a significant difference. It may just be a process difference. It may be a difference for them in how they use their equipment, how they get their equipment, but it will be a difference for them. So.
Okay, if no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Undersheriff.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
They did a very good job. The deputies handled that well, and training experience to be involved in one grounding. Two groundings, one night, a lot of effort,
Thank you, and a lot of that is deservingly to the dive team members who were obviously like volunteer firefighters on their own time, and they responded in that night in mass to both locations. So we would have liked a different result on both, but it is what it is. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is item IJC.IJK and several others as usual. Christopher Bolt, good morning.
Good morning. As usual, huh? All right. First item is a hydro seeder, which is used for restoration of disturbed areas on our projects. You'll see a couple items on today's agenda that we're really trying to up our game and improve the way we do projects with more timely restoration, better cleanup of projects, and safety. So this is a cost-effective purchase. It'll basically pay for itself within about a year after using it on our projects, including Summit and Spring Arbor work.
Commissioners, any questions of Chris on the hydro seeder? If not, a motion's in order. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Brooms.
The brooms. Boyce brooms are very useful for us. You'll see the picture in the brochure. These are the modern versions that have water tanks to keep dust down, which is very important in neighborhoods and just generally important for safety. We don't want plumes of dust interfering with traffic. We use these brooms on chip seal work, our recycling projects. Rose Hill, we used it extensively to clean up during the day and after the end of the day. Shouldering, paving work, our driveways, keeping jobs clean, and safety is paramount. So we're just looking to add a couple to the fleet because we're finding that it's a pinch point for us here during construction season.
Any questions of Chris on the brooms? If not, a motion's in order and it goes to the full board. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Aerial lift.
Thank you. We have a major tree problem in our county. I've mentioned before in past reports that we are over a decade behind in tree trimming work, so we're trying to take advantage of good weather days and mild winter weather days also to do our own tree canopy work to supplement our contracted tree work. So we've shown and we've tried one of these. As you may recall, we purchased it a year or so ago with great success, and this quote is right at budget, and we're looking to add another piece to our fleet.
Commissioners, any questions on this? If not, it goes to the full board as well.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Chris, Act 51 report.
Okay, there's 29 pages here that I'll go through in excruciating detail for you.
Is there a motion?
I would like to point you to one thing if I can, Mr. Chair. Page 7 of the 29-page report. If you can all go there, that would be helpful for what I'm going to reference. It's very good news for us. I'll try to find it myself here. It's called the Statement of Changes in Fund Balances. Yeah, the whole thing is a table of numbers. This is what keeps our finance team busy, and it's why we stay quasi as our own quasi-business entity, the whole Act 51 requirements from 1951. So this is our annual statement of how we sit, essentially. So the Statement of Changes in Fund Balances, page 7 of 29, shows a couple of things that are very positive for us. Number one, on lines 136, you'll see the beginning fund balance from the year before was $12 million. And our ending fund balance at the close of 2017 was 30 million, just over 30 million. So that's a very positive thing, and it's in the right categories. You'll see that we generally zero out the primary road fund and the local road fund, and the most diverse and flexible fund is the County Road Commission Fund. Sorry, I can't change the name to County Road Department Fund or Transportation Department Fund. That's the statutory name for that category. So that's a very positive thing. And the other thing you'll see is on line 132, optional transfers. Pretty much every road commission in the state of Michigan has to move money from primary road fund over to local road fund. This year, for the first time, I believe ever, and when we asked our team if they've ever seen it, and auditors and so forth, it's not even a thing. Usually there's some kind of number moved over. So this is the first time we haven't had to rob Peter to pay Paul. That's a very positive thing. So that's really the two good news items that I'd like to share. We're very financially healthy, and just proud to share that with all of you. Thank you for your support.
And I like your trend. One page of a 30-page document. I'm kidding. Commissioners, any questions of Chris on this document? Or Chris, did you have additional, or is this it?
This is it. We just need, it's an annual thing, and we need a signature on that's what you're authorizing, a signature on the cover sheet so we can submit it to the state.
Okay, we'd be looking for a motion to send it on to the full board. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Chris. Storage buildings.
All right.
Or building.
Or building. Whatever, it's your prerogative. So our original equipment and modernization fund bond proposal for $14 million approved 2 years ago included some general line items for facilities upgrades and improvements. And we didn't yet know what we would need, but this was one of the things in the background. We have made a decision internally to recommend to you that we forego some of the other project work we were going to do, which included things like paving our parking lots and some general other items that we think we can handle through just routine capital upgrades in the next 2 to 3 years. The parking lots can wait because now we own the recycling equipment, and we think that's a better method and smarter way to do it when we have free time in our schedule, if that ever happens. But we certainly want to fix the public's roads before we go to town on our own facility. So there's just priorities there that we're trying to balance. So the key things here is that JCDOT in my analysis and estimation over my 3.5 years here, has never had enough storage for its equipment. We have things sitting outside rusting and rotting, and it has always bothered me. It's always bothered our team, and that's true at all 4 of our facilities and complexes. So it isn't just for the new equipment. I just want to emphasize that. It's actually for all equipment that we want to get this undercover. Things like, you know, with the new plow trucks, we're buying new front plows. Nice shiny orange, they're beautiful. Well, when you look at the ones that have been sitting outside for 30 years, they look horrible. And we started the Paint a Plow program in an effort to try to clean them up, but they really need to be undercover if at all possible. That's just one item, one example, I guess. So this is in line with best practices in the industry. We have done a lot of work on researching building options, and we found that traditional construction, and talking with our facilities department, would have cost about $4 million to do the equivalent 50,000 square feet of floor space that we need at our main complex on Elm. So this is a little over $1 million for a fabric version. It's a new and innovative way to do buildings. A lot of salt barns are built this way. We like the construction, and so there's also here a focus on local work. So what we're doing is we're buying the superstructure with this proposal, if you approve it, and we would do the slab work, the electrical, the ventilation, all that other stuff we would let locally. But the first thing is to know that we're going to do this, so those engineering plans can be wrapped up by the company, and then we can put that out for bids locally. So
Chris, as a point of clarification, you're seeking roughly 1.1 million. That's for both buildings, correct?
That's for both buildings, correct.
But that is not inclusive of the other things you mentioned, like ventilation, cement floor, and all that. That would be on top of that?
Correct. The staff report highlights what we estimate those to be. Could be anywhere. We're going to seek to minimize those costs, of course. And frankly, if the slab came in too high, we could forego that. You can actually have a gravel floor if you want in these things, or even just pave it ourselves with asphalt. It's commonly done. We'd prefer a slab floor. We think it might be cost effective. We'd like to keep it super clean inside and organized. You'll see from the photos in the staff report and the brochures how bright they are in the daytime. And there'd be a lighting system for night access. But we originally wanted one large building, but in talking with the consultant, the designers, and also with our team and looking at our site, it made more sense, and it was cost effective to actually do 2 separate buildings. So in the future, we'd like to look at one of these for each of our outlying garages, but we'll phase that in over time as part of our master facilities plan for the future, because they're definitely short on storage as well.
And Chris, just to clarify, the funding for it would come from the bonding?
Correct.
Okay.
We do have funds there. Like I said, we're going to forego some of the items that we'd originally put in. So the money is there.
Commissioners, any other questions of Chris? Phil?
I'm reading through this. Are these buildings both the same size exactly? They're both 140 by 184?
Correct.
And how tall is ceiling?
I'm not sure at the center of the span. There is some, in the literature, there's some diagrams that show that. Pretty tall. They are 14 feet at the sides, so you can park our semis along the sides or back them in, and that's one of the nice things is the trusses come up, and one of the reasons they go so tall is to shed the snow. Snow load is significantly reduced. The fabric, it just slides right off, so there's a lot of benefits to that. And then there's headspace if we did want to open up a dump truck, clean it out, do things like that.
Okay. I was just concerned about the height. I didn't see it. And
it's actually 50 feet.
46 on the inside.
46 in the middle to the bottom of the truss.
All right, thank you.
It's a 50-year warranty on the superstructure, and I think a 20-year on the fabric, and it's a fire retardant fabric. So it's about $100,000 to replace the fabric. I just want to throw that in case you're wondering. And you do that every 25 years, they're telling us. So we're planning to set aside 10 grand a year to replace the fabric as needed. So that's very cost effective if you ask me, because there's no re-roofing or anything like that to do in the future.
Any other questions of Chris?
If I may. Steve? Chris, I'm an advocate for concrete floors. Seriously. If you're going to be working on trucks, that means fluid's going to be draining, fluid's going to be going into the ground. We have a current road commission site. While before we were involved really in paying attention to all this, we know we had to move a convention center roughly 30 feet, because of spoilage in the ground. Just be very cognizant of that, and that while we want to maintain costs, definitely, we really also want to be able to take care of ourselves 30 years from now and not have to deal with hazardous materials and bad dirt and everything else, because we learned with the airport what that costs just to dispose of a few yards of it.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. Our desire is like yours, is to build it right and do things properly. Sometimes that requires phasing, so I'm hopeful that the concrete numbers will prove to be favorable. One of the huge benefits of this is that if you approve it, we can actually get the superstructure up with helical piling here in September, October. Definitely in October, which would give us a protected environment to do everything else through the early winter months. So it gives us probably lower prices on our bids, because contractors can squeeze it in hopefully before snow flies and the cement plants shut down. So, or even move it to the next spring if we had to. But I'd love to get our new equipment and everything under cover for the winter at least.
But Chris, that $5 million worth of equipment we bought, there's nowhere to put it right now under cover, correct?
That is correct. So
we don't want that.
That was not in the original plan, but it now is, and so we have that.
The question is, this $1,122,000, is that for both buildings?
Correct.
Or one? Okay.
That is for both.
All right.
And I was pleasantly surprised with those numbers. That's one thing we suspected with this option based on what we knew. I've done a salt barn like this before at a prior employer. We loved it. It was bright inside, clean. It was a great solution for us, very cost effective.
Price.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We'd be looking for a motion to send it to the full board.
Approve.
Oh, good. Go ahead. There, support? Motion and support. Doctor, do you have another question?
They are not warm. They are just ventilated, so it's cold storage. But in the summer, one thing that's nice about the fabric is it keeps it about 10 degrees cooler in the summer and about 10 degrees warmer in the winter. So on mild winter days, we could do light things out there, but it's not the intent to do major things. So.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. JCDOT monthly report.
Thank you. You have before you the main items. I'll just highlight a few changes. I'll have Angie and Bob speak to a couple, but I'll just throw out that we did shoulder Rose Hill Friday, and turned out very nicely. We're trying to get stripes on that as soon as we can and finish up some of the restoration in the yards and ditches and so forth. We're very pleased with that project. It rides beautifully, and we learned a great deal as we move forward. We expect to fire the recycling program up mid next week. We've got a pretty intense program, and we're in the process of getting those mixed designs in the laboratory wrapped up. We ran into a little hiccup there with supply chain on getting those done, and we talked with Mike, and we scrambled to get our own lab up and running 0 to 60 in no time. So our team is working literally this morning on our mixed designs, getting them ready. Our chip seal program started today, and so we're taking advantage of this lull in the recycling program to use our staff and team to do the chip seal work. And we think maybe a week to 10 days, Bob, is that correct? At the max. So paint program in the update is listed as starting, I think, this week, but it's probably going to be 2 more weeks out. What we're trying to do is we realized our passing zones through the county had not been evaluated in many, many years. So a big kudos to Angie Klein, our new engineering director, as she noticed some eyebrow scrunching passing zone demarcations in our road system that didn't seem to make sense. So she's working with a consultant to help study. They have a really neat system. I think it's multiple vehicles with mirrors and so forth that tell you exactly where those passing zones will be, and so they'll be locked down and accurate. This is part of our safety program. You've heard an emphasis in the past on studying intersections and so forth, so it's very important for us to do that. Any other questions on the monthly update? I think, Angie, you had a couple updates to share? Not in there?
I just wanted to add real quick for the Ann Arbor pathway. We had our pre-construction meeting last week, and the construction start date is July 23rd. and they hope to have that one finished by September 28th. And then Bailey will move to the Rives Junction pathway, and that has a September 17th to November 15th construction dates. And then the West Michigan Ave project also has construction dates of August 13th to October 1st. So those are 3 meetings we had last week after this was wrote that I wanted to update you on.
I just thought of Denton Road parking lot, which is nearly complete. We have restoration, I think a couple items to take care of on that. But you'd be happy to know it's well under the budget that you approved. We're trying to get those final numbers together, but it's tens of thousands less. So we're real happy with that.
Phil?
Yes, the gravel roads, I think they're scheduled for 3 applications of the solvent. Do you know when the next phase is coming out? I've had a couple people ask me because they're starting to get rough and dusty a little bit now.
Right. Bob, can you come up? I'll have you speak to that. But I do know that we were planning on 3, but we got hit with rain in May, delayed the preparation for the first round, so it's coming in so late that we might only do 2.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob, if you could give an update.
Well, if weather cooperates with us, we plan on doing the grading a little bit ahead of time to start doing the next round of brine on the 15th August.
Okay.
But it usually takes a couple weeks of grading to get ahead of the brine truck, so probably about the 1st August we'll start grading all the roads to stay on track.
So they should get their brine or whatever it is applied about middle August.
Yep. Like I said, as long as the weather cooperates, if we don't get rain, it doesn't do us a lot of good. And it's kind of a double whammy. It's dusty and bad, but if it's that dusty, the brine just runs off and runs to the shoulder and doesn't soak into the road, and you get no effect from it. So
I've had a couple.
Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, hold still. Yeah, let me come back on for that. The dust palliatives we put down, Commissioner Duckham, are hygroscopic. And what hygroscopic means is that you have to have moisture in the gravel to hold in. So it's a Goldilocks effect. If it's too wet, we can't grade, we can't prepare. If it's too dry, you're just going to waste your money putting on the dust control because it's basically just going to beat up and you know, not set. So it really is about finding the perfect window to put it down. So that's something we should probably get an educational piece out for the public and help them understand that. Bob wanted to share one thing on Oak Wilt. We're out of the high-risk zone.
And I guess one quick thing back on the brine, if we do get some moisture a little ahead of that, then we'll start brining, you know, prior to that if we can get the moisture in the ground. The other thing I wanted to say was, as of today, we're out of the high-risk area for the Oak Wilt, so all of our crews contracted in, direct forces will go back to their normal tree cutting and trimming procedures.
But we have been applying the spray.
Yes, anytime we create a wound on an oak that has been sealed with spray.
It's clear, right?
Well, actually, it does turn it black, so it's, you can see it. It's maybe it's the exact time that they put it on. It's not so evident, but it turns black, and you can see that it's on there. Any questions?
Okay.
One more
Commissioners,
thing.
any other questions?
I just want to say that stumps have been on our mind, and we are changing the way we do that, where we're not going to leave the stumps for weeks and months. So we're actually looking at a program where when a tree comes down and a stump remains twice a month, we're going to have our contractor stop trimming and go do stumps now. That's what we've decided on as a solution.
Well, if it works out, we're trying to work with 2 of the contractors that we use right now that when they cut a tree down, say like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, on Friday and Saturday, they'll go in and grind those stumps.
Even better yet.
Yep. And then we're also trying to work with them if they're in a mowed yard or something to have them, either them or our guys, go in and remove the wood chips, put topsoil and seed it so that it's all done relatively quickly. Right now, stumps wait until the fall and winter time when we can get to them, and so they are there for an extended amount of time. We're trying to get them fairly quick now. So,
thank you.
Yeah, that's just a relic of how we used to do it, and that's the way we've always done it. And so we've pushed internally and asked hard questions and made a change because it's just not acceptable. So,
okay.
That's it.
Think we're good?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Takes us down to claims, looking for a motion. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Other minutes, there are none. The August reporting schedule looks like we'll be light next month. And takes us to public comment. And seeing all staff, I think we have no public comment. Committee member comment. You can't talk. Do you have something to say publicly, Mike? Or go ahead.
I just wanted to, you know, I'm sitting here listening to Jay Dodd and Christopher and Bob and Angie, and you know, I don't know if everybody fully appreciates, but I definitely want to say to them that I do. I understand and I fully appreciate the effort that you guys put into what you're doing. Just the effort it takes to ask hard questions of ourselves and recognize that, you know, just because this is how we've done it doesn't mean that's how we should do it today. And because it's real easy to have our blinders on and go forward and never consider that, or we get caught up in, we're on the wheel running so hard just to stay afloat, to step back and really take those, answer those hard questions. So again, I just wanted to go out there and say, you know, I really appreciate it, and you guys are doing a great job. And I know there's struggles with this whole new recycling and all that effort, but you know, as I was discussing the other day with a neighbor who was asking about it, I told him, you know, a year from now, they'll be forgotten. You know, we'll have it all smoothed out and everything will be running and purring along. It'll be awesome. So kudos. Thank you.